Hello there, it's Harper. Before I jump right in and start discussing The Mysterious Affair at Styles by Agatha Christie, I thought I should mention a couple of things. Firstly, obviously, massive spoiler alert. Secondly, in this video I only discuss the book, but I am planning to create a video that compares the book to its adaptations, so if you would like to listen to that, once created I will put it in the description section below. Also, I wanted to just add here that as I was writing out my notes for this video, I realized it was a character analysis more than anything else. So just letting you know, the focus of this video is more on the characters rather than the plot itself. Alright, so I thought I would discuss the first Agatha Christie book I ever read. Coincidentally, the first Hercule Poirot book Agatha Christie wrote in 1916. I still remember how I felt as I was reading it. I loved it so much. I thought it was the bee's knees. And to be completely transparent and at risk of making myself sound stupid, this was in spite of me taking a moment to fully grasp how Emily Inglethorpe was killed. But I got there. It just wasn't a very straightforward way of killing someone, so it just took me a moment. Anyway, love the book, still love it. Still one of my favourite Poirot books. In terms of characters, of course I adore the two main characters for entirely different reasons. One of the reasons why I love Poirot is he has a lot of the traits I value and like, especially in this novel. He's gentle, comforting, comical, yet intelligent and efficient. And I always get the feeling he doesn't take himself too seriously, despite the serious nature of what he does. Also, he is self-aware. He knows how he comes across to the people around him and often uses it to solve the crime. Love it. Hastings I love because he gives golden retriever energy. He's also gentle and kind, and to juxtapose Poirot, he's full of English decorum. I don't know if this is relevant, but one thing I did find the most unbelievable in the novel was that he would be so emotionally unaffected by fighting in the First World War. Maybe I'm viewing things too much through the modern lens, where PTSD and mental health conditions as a result of trauma are more deeply recognised and considered, but I thought Captain Hastings, he's a captain, would have had more internal struggles considering what he had to go through. But I guess maybe that's why I love him, because despite the atrocities he must have seen, he doesn't lose his golden retriever energy. Anyway, so love them. I was considerably younger when I first read this novel, so how I interpreted the characters back then is somewhat different to how I interpret them now. Especially after knowing more about English culture and traditions, it's given me a clearer picture in terms of the context of the novel. For example, when I first read the novel, I was so confused by John and Mary's relationship and their behaviour. Firstly, John, why would you marry a woman who has told you that she doesn't love you? I mean, marrying someone in the hope that she would change is just kind of unwise. Stupid. Mary I understood more, wanting to get away from her life, but I still didn't like her, and I actually still don't. She comes across really snooty and arrogant. Also very immature. Why play games? Just tell your husband you love him instead of acting like a jealous 15-year-old girl. I couldn't help rolling my eyes at her antics with Dr. Bauerstein. Okay, Mary, do what you need to do. Lawrence I didn't really like either. I guess I didn't really like any of the Cavendishes. Lawrence is a droopy dog, but I did feel like he was paired well with Cynthia. They kind of seemed to balance each other out. Cynthia being more energetic, I could see them as a couple. Cynthia would give Lawrence a bit of direction in life because he was clearly very directionless, and also give him a bit of life, and Lawrence would be able to calm Cynthia down. I had a lot of empathy for Cynthia actually, especially living under the dictatorship of Emily Inglethorpe. I can imagine how anxious she must have been constantly, always feeling like she owed Emily, and Emily taking advantage of that, What a terrible way to live. Like, no freedom at all. Which is why, and this is awful to say, but I was glad Emily got the ending she did. I know, that's horrendous. But we all know someone like Emily, and don't you just wish they would get their comeuppance in some way? Knock them off their self-righteous, emotionally toxic high horse. And I felt vindictive glee that she found out about Alfred and Evie and what they were doing before she died. Aren't I cruel? Though I do feel like Emily finding out about that plot would have been punishment enough for her, I still have no sympathy for her. At all. Evie. Maybe an odd thing to say, but I didn't actually have much emotion towards her as a character, even though she is one of the perpetrators. But the thing is, we as an audience, we never really get to know her or Alfred. Right from the jump, what we know of them is a performance because they're already in the middle of their plotting when we meet them. And Alfred Inglethorpe especially is such a detached, blank character who barely gets any dialogue. So all we know is that they fell in love, there's no backstory to that, nothing to feel invested in, and then they plotted to murder Emily for money. It's kind of a bland backstory, almost, to be honest. Their story, I mean. So we don't get much about either of them as individuals either, so it's difficult to feel anything for characters you don't really get to know, for me anyway. In terms of the actual plot of the book, it's good. It's not my favourite plot though. To me, what makes this story so enjoyable and makes it one of my favourites are the characters, especially Poirot and Hastings and the relationship between the two, as well as their interactions with the secondary characters. That's what really makes the story, in my humble opinion. What have I missed out on? I also love how much English culture comes through in the book. As someone who is not English but studied history and has a real fascination in exploring it, I found it really interesting. Like, for example, Hastings' insistence with English gallantry and chivalry, and how meals, even within the home, are a bit of an event that you dress for instead of just rolling into the kitchen in your pajamas. I also liked Dorcas, the sweet maid, who will not speak ill of her mistress, even though I have no doubt Emily was a tyrant. I love the bits and pieces of English culture that just come trickling through. Also, can we just take a moment to focus on Emily wanting to hush up an entire murder plot against her by her husband and best friend, or what I assume was the best friend, because of the scandal it would cause? The mind boggles. Lady, they're trying to kill you. I know that it's not strictly English to want to avoid fuss and scandal, but I wanted to mention it anyway. As much as I didn't like the character of Emily, I kind of found myself writing a backstory for her in a way I didn't for the other secondary characters. You know, this self-righteous, authoritarian, control freak who cared so much about her reputation, who most likely lived her life holding herself to some inflexible standard, is still ultimately human and falls for a villain, which I feel was out of a deep-seated loneliness. People like Emily, in my opinion, they push others away, not intentionally, but because they have this strong need to feel superior, and no one ever truly likes someone like that. And so this was kind of like my backstory for Emily. I think the main reason why her former husband, John's father, married her was because he needed a mother for his sons. I'm sure she seemed, externally at least, like a good candidate because she was someone who obviously got things done, but I doubt that it was love. And I think Emily knew that. I think she knew that people didn't love her. Maybe not consciously, but she knew. Why else did she try to control everyone with money? Because she knew that she herself would not be enough to attach people to her. Kind of sad, actually. So yeah, good story, good characters, very enjoyable novel, highly recommend. The murder itself is not the crux of the story, but the characters are what make it to me. And so that's why this video has been more of a character analysis. But hope you still enjoy listening to this video. Until next time, Bye!